Good news. I have one thing that you can do starting today that will make your life better. It will make you more successful, and it will make you happier. It will help you persevere, and it will help you put a positive spin on your life. It doesn't cost anything, and it doesn't involve any other people. Do you want to know what it is? Here's what you have to do. You have to throw a party. And that party has to be for yourself. It's not going to involve anyone else. You're going to stand up and you're going to loudly celebrate yourself. So I see some faces. People are like, that is so nice, Lisa, but I have a job, or I have school, and I have a mortgage, and I have all these things that they've told me that I have to do to be successful, and a party isn't one of them. I'm going to talk about myself for a second and how celebrating myself changed my life. Before I could walk, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't just want to be, I was a dancer. I threw innumerable recitals in the basement of my parents' house. I would take the scarves out of my mother's drawers and dance with them. And I would imagine myself on stage all of the time and what that was going to feel like, and I loved it. And I started dance class, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. This was about when I started elementary school, and in those 5 years, I danced, and I danced, and I danced. And I loved the class, I loved the recitals, and I loved the costumes, and everything was great. I was in love. And the dance that I loved the most was ballet. It felt like the epitome of what a dancer was. It was elegant, and it was beautiful, and it was graceful, and I loved it. And about the time that you transition from elementary school to middle school is when you go onto toe shoes. And I was in a pre-professional ballet program where the aim is to get you on stage as a professional ballerina. And I was 10 or 11 years old, and I was ready, and I was excited, and something else happened. I got as tall as I am right now, and I looked like how I do right now. And one day, the ballet teacher, she took my mom into the hallway, and she said, you know, we're going to take Lisa out of the program, and she can go into some other classes. Maybe she'd like tap or something like that. She was like, she's a little too womanly. My mom was like, what? And they were like, she's too big. She's too big for ballet. And a little part of me died. And I was so sad. And I was too much for the thing that I loved the most. And I changed, and I started doing other dances. I started doing musical theater and hip hop. And I started to adapt. I tried to wear all black, and I tried to tie shirts around my waist, and I tried to physically make myself smaller. I tried not to be offensive. And I even learned how to do things like not to eat, and to have ice with sweetener on it for meals, and to fool my parents by putting bowls with food in it in the sink. And I was like, oh, I ate. And I tried to get smaller, so that I would be okay for the thing that I loved the most, dancing. And then I also heard things, and I heard things like, she's great, let's put the big girls in the back. You know, if you lost 5 pounds, you would do excellent at this. And they said things like, well, you know, she's good for the big girl. And so that was my life, and I was fine at dancing. I did okay, and I didn't do well because I was also diminishing myself. I was diminishing my expression. I was trying not to be too big in any way that I could be. And then I stopped dancing. I graduated from college, and I moved on, and I started to have my adult life, and I still tried to diminish myself and to not offend anyone. And I would occasionally go and take a dance class, and one day I was living in Washington, D.C., and I went to take a dance class, and it was fine. And then there was a class after mine, and it was a belly dance class. And this woman who seemed larger than life and who was older, she was in her 50s. I was like, there's dance teachers in their 50s? She was unashamed, and she walked in and she started teaching this class. And all these women who were all these different ages and sizes and shapes were in the class in these beautiful outfits, and I just stood in the doorway and I watched. And the next week, I went back and I took the class before it and I watched, and she saw me and she was like, why don't you come in here? And I walked in the door and my life changed. I started belly dancing and I started my career, and that was 15 years ago. And I saw this culture, and this is a very specific dance form that comes from a very specific culture, which is also my culture, the culture of the Middle East. And I saw how it allowed these women to express themselves, and it allowed me to start to celebrate myself. At that age, everything changed because I saw that I was okay and I didn't have to get smaller. And I started to celebrate myself. I threw my own party, and the way that I did it by the things that I wore, the costumes that I own. I did it by what I was doing with my body. I taught myself how to do something that I loved. And I did it by not shrinking anymore. I stood up, and I was as big as I wanted to be. I was as big in my career, I was as big in my personality, and I was as big in my body. I said, this is me, this is my art, these are my thighs, and I stopped saying I'm sorry, and I started saying you're welcome. They're right here. And they carry me around, they carry all of us around, it's amazing. And then everything changed, and I have started being unapologetic, which is the first step to throwing yourself a party. And it has made me better in the world. And if we look at why we use celebrations in societies and in cultures, we can see what they do for us. In our American culture, we see that there are national holidays, we have personal holidays, things like weddings and birthdays, and we have religious holidays. And they make time stop. It is a time when we reflect. It's in a time when we celebrate someone, when we show up for people. There are holidays where we are thankful and we pause and we're with people that we love. And if you do that for yourself, you create your own holidays, your own celebrations. You show up and reflect and are thankful and have gratitude for you. And that puts you out in the world like that. So I have a question. Who likes being told that they have done a good job? Yes, everyone. And who works harder when they've been told they're doing a good job? Right, me too, all of it is in our human nature to work harder. However, that's a very fleeting concept as an adult. Oftentimes they're like, congratulations, you got a paycheck, keep working. So we're going to start, or I'm going to say that we should start doing that for ourselves. You're going to tell yourself you did a good job every morning. Sometimes it's like, girl, you nailed it, you got out of the bed. And then it's going to make the breakfast, the job, the kids, the midterm, whatever you have to do, you will do better at it if someone, yourself, has told you that you are doing a really good job. Okay, I have another question for you. Who wants some more money? Yes. I said, you're lying if you don't put your hand up. So here's the thing, is when I'm saying throw yourself a party, I'm saying you should value yourself. Value shows itself in a lot of different ways, and one of them is financial. So if you can say, I'm worth it, then that will manifest itself in worth for you. So I became a belly dancer. And what belly dance taught me was that I wasn't just okay. I have a real issue with the concept of self-acceptance. I think that you can't just say, hey, I'm okay. Okay, you're amazing. And that's what I learned by doing this thing. I stepped into amazing. And when I felt that way, I felt like I was worth something. And I felt like I could open a business. And 10 years ago, I opened a dance studio, and that dance studio has thrived. And I had the self-worth to say, yes, I want to come teach in France. This is how much I want you to pay me. I need you to buy me an airline ticket. That's self-worth. I said, yes, I will step onto that stage in front of 1,500 people and dance. And you have to pay me to do it. And I got paid what I was worth. And that is a parallel to being worth it in anything. Worth it in your relationships. Worth it in your life. It is more worth. So here's the thing. More money, super, feeling like we've done a good job, great. But here's the other thing that celebrating yourself will do for you. It will make you happier. And there's no greater need or desire in the world than to feel happy. And the way that you start doing that is in how you talk to yourself. Neurologically, happiness begets happiness. So if I wake up in the morning and I congratulate myself for getting out of the bed or for doing all the things I'm going to do today, that's also going to change my outlook on how I look at other people, other things, the world. And being negative is going to take you in the other direction. Okay, so now we're like, well, now this sounds good. I'm going to throw myself a party. So what do? This is what I did. I started small, and it was all about having the party in here before I had the party out here. I started talking to myself in a way that was positive, in a way that I would talk to my friends or a child. And that felt like a little party. That felt like a revolution the first time I did it. I bought a journal, and in it, I was like, hey, Lisa, you're all right. So that now I can be like, hey, Lisa, you're pretty darn fantastic. And then you just think, there's no limits. What do I love the most in the world? Is it roller skating? Go to the roller rink. You can get your nails done. You can do anything that makes you feel good because this party is only for you. And then after that, after you start that and you start to see that you can change your life by your self-worth and by celebrating yourself and being as big as you want to be, you can get really radical and start celebrating everything about yourself. You can start celebrating the parts of you that aren't great. You can start celebrating the parts of you that are hard. You can start celebrating yourself for being a human in this world. And if this still feels uncomfortable for you, you can do it for everyone else, and you can do it for society, and you can do it for the world. Because how you treat yourself, whether or not you celebrate yourself, affects how you show up in the world. It affects how you treat people, it affects your relationships, and none of this will go well if you aren't celebrating yourself. When I was diminished, when I was small, and I literally can feel my shoulders coming in, going back to that part of my life, I failed at a marriage. I wasn't very good at my job because I wasn't celebrating myself. So let's all take a deep breath and sit up straight. Yes. And think about how great we are because the party starts today. Thank you.